Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks. So sorry I've been gone for a few days, but yeah, I've had the mother of all travels back from Belarus to the UK. Ended up thinking that I could fly through Moscow without a visa, and ended up panic buying tickets instead to be able to go through Istanbul and then to London. But I'm back. Everything's good. The computer which I took there to be able to stream on and to create YouTube videos on is back up and working flawlessly. So without further ado, the baby is back. And what am I going to be talking about today? Well, today I'm going to be talking about the light tank that can play like a medium. Or shall I say the light tank that you should really play like a medium. Otherwise, you're probably going to be making some mistakes. Now, there's an EBR-105 on the enemy team who's decided to be very aggressive and come forwards as much as possible. And I'm playing in the tank that's currently top of the tree, and which I showcased during my Tech Tree Showcase last Sunday. It's the WZ-132-1. This Chinese light tank is the most heavily armoured light tank in the game. You could argue that something like an Aufklärungspanzer Panther at tier 7 is maybe better tier for tier with regards to its armour, but I'd say tier 10, right? It's got to be tier 10. And the WZ-132-1 is very special just purely because of its awesome turret armor. Turret armor which looks like it's better than my marksmanship there, unable to be able to finish off the EBR-105 on the enemy team. Nevertheless, we got forwards, we worked our turret, we pressured the wheeled vehicle, and that is what the WZ-132 is all about. Now, when I say that this thing's got great turret armor, it's got 200 millimeters on the front and 160 at the side. It's kind of like a decent enough tier 8 medium or like a tier 9 medium. Now don't think that this is going to be like a tier 10 Soviet heavy or a tier 10 Soviet medium tank with regards to that capacity. I'd feel like I'd sit in front of most things in this tank unless they're firing high explosive anti-tank rounds, because then you lose a lot of the auto ricochet angles between the 70 and the 85 degrees where armor piercing rounds will be able to bounce, but heat rounds will be able to enter your tank with their higher penetration and the capacity to be able to enter 70 to 85 degrees of angled armor. So the WZ-132-1, when it first went into the game with all of the other light tanks, was actually the best tier 10 light tank. It was pretty much identical to what it is now. However, all of the other vehicles ended up getting buffed. And so I felt like while the WZ-132-1 was the best initially, when Wargaming buffed all of the other light tanks, they kind of at least went on par to the WZ-132-1, or arguably they kind of went better than the WZ-132-1, which is why it's a light tank that I don't really like playing all that much. I think you'd be silly to want to play this thing in a holistic environment compared to something like a T100LT. The T100LT is lower profile, better camo, its gun is, I'd say, not quite as good, but still decent if you're able to make that low penetration work, especially with the gold rounds on the tank. And the T100LT is faster, and it just seems to be this kind of magical cloaking device. And that profile really helps with being able to avoid the shells altogether. And when you think that this tank, with its 25 millimeters of side armor and 50 millimeters of frontal armor, it's not going to be bouncing too much unless they hit the front of the turret. Nevertheless, there's a reason why this thing has to be statistically worse than pretty much all of the other tier 10 light tanks with regards to its scouting capabilities or its profile or even its damaging compared to the Sheridan. And that is because you can just sit, hold down with this thing's turret. You can play that kind of defensive role. Now, I don't think that's going to be probably the best way to play your light tanks. I think light tanks are still best suited towards getting vision. But at the end of the day, you have to work with what you have. And when it comes to the WZ-132-1, you're playing a light tank that is not as nearly as good at scouting as the other tier 10 light tanks. And so quite often, if you end up trying to play scout versus scout at a decent distance, you're going to do real bad in a vehicle like this. However, if you can pressure the enemy light tank, you can try and give yourself an advantage that way, or even you use your light tank to try and pressure some of the more weakly armored medium tanks like a Leopard prototype on the enemy team, then this thing can be solid. One thing that isn't solid, however, is the accuracy. 0.42 accuracy on this tank is absolutely horrific. However, I would never really recommend using the accuracy module on this vehicle unless you truly want to snipe. Now, here we go. This is a play that light tanks just shouldn't really be able to make. Now we're going to go and we're going to sit above our opponents, exposing our turret, hopefully to the Leopard prototype or even to the Kampfpanzer or the Standard B, and I can't really think of any other light tank which I would be so comfortable doing this. And that's why this thing can be truly special. So if you want to have a light tank that has good camera rating on the move, as that is the class-based bonus, and you want to combine that with good frontal turret armor to be able to do troll things that no other light tank can do, then maybe you should invest your time in the WZ-132-1 line during the top of the tree. However, I would also like to clarify that all of the other vehicles, I feel, the Tier 7, the 8 and the 9, they just don't really feel special because while they get some armor, it's not nearly as much as the WZ-132-1. It's kind of going along like this on the armor and then suddenly, boom, up to Tier 10, where it's kind of actually usable. So you have to work, you have to grind up the tech tree to be able to get into the position where you can kind of be like a Soviet medium tank. And when you find yourself in this kind of an environment where you can make the 5 degrees of gun depression work, oh, it just feels absolutely awesome. And I feel like this is where this tank can be at its most influential as well. Light tanks now with their high explosive nerfs, or shall I say more importantly, the self-propelled gun nerfs and the fact that there are hardly any self-propelled guns playing, and when they do actually play with you, they kind of do hardly any damage. Light tanks are now being pressured more and more to not just play that pure scouting role, not just to keep their opponents lit up, but also to have to play a more offensive role. And so I feel while all of the other light tanks have probably been hurt more, if there's one light tank that is kind of better in the meta, or at least is less worse in the meta than a lot of the other light tanks with the self-propelled gun nerfs, it's going to be the WZ-132-1. Would I race to be able to get this vehicle while it's top of the tree? Probably not. I would lie if I said that you are going to be the most competitive tank out there when you play a vehicle like this. When frankly, you could go and play something like an Object 430U, you could play an Object 140, and while you're not going to have quite as good camera rating on the move, and your mobility will be a touch less, your combat capacity is going to be oh so much better that it kind of more than makes up for the slight advantages in the mobility and the camera rating on the move. One thing that a lot of people don't talk about when it comes to Tier 10 light tanks is just how bad their penetration drop-off is over distance. When Wargaming created Tier 10 light tanks, I guess they really didn't want them to be some sort of new medium tank and for them to be able to snipe at decent distances. And so accordingly, what they did is they made it so that they lose about 25% of their penetration over 500 meters, whereas every other class and every other tier, even Tier 9 light tanks, lose pretty much at most 5 or 10% of their penetration over distance. And so this means that if you're a gold noob, like I'm going to be against this Type 4 Heavy, then you're going to be at a tremendous advantage. Because remember, high explosive anti-tank, as it is a high explosive round after all, doesn't lose any penetration over distance, so they keep the 280 millimeters, while your APCR rounds are likely to be down at around about the 190 mark at 500 meters. So I'm trying to implore the Jagdtiger on my team here, seeing how we've been in this game for 8.5 minutes now, that if we want to win this game, because it looks like the enemies are about to win the south, that we're going to have to grind through our opponents here. What I want to do is create a crossfire with the Jagdtiger, and now you can see we're down 3,000 hit points, and we're also down 3 vehicles. We're really going to have our work cut out for us if we want to be able to try and win this. What I want the Jagdtiger to do is to distract the Type 4 Heavy a little bit, while I manage to try and get heat rounds into either their frontal hull or their turret. And wow, there we go, the Jagdtiger actually listened, came down with me, now is pushing with me. The Type 4 Heavy missed, so I'm hoping the Jagdtiger is going to get around the corner. I know my reload will be good enough to be able to engage them. So in this situation, I'm just trying to weigh up what I think the chances are of me winning the battle if I continue to play this campy roll. And there we go, right through the side of the Type 4 Heavy. But why did I have to roll for like minus 81 damage? That's a bit of a sucking shot there. All right, so I didn't think that we were going to win unless we managed to progress. I'm trying to help this Jagdtiger, to ask him, like, I'm with you, bro. If you go, I'll play with you. I'll amplify your DPM. You got all the hit points, and when I see that he gets shot, I'm going to go and be a team player in this scenario. He does a great job in taking out the Kampfpanzer, and I wait for the Standard B. I shut him down as well. The Type 4 Heavy has recently fired, so I'm going to take my chances. Actually, no, I don't want him to engage me. So I make my way up the slope, and then, as you can see, I thank the Jagdtiger Beautiful play there. Big shout out to you. I'm not sure if this is your real name or if it's your anonymized name, but Mimay, it was an absolute pleasure to play with you on that flank. And look at that, the WZ-132-1 kind of played like a medium tank in that scenario, and now up to 4,000 combined. But that 2,700 damage was very much influential in being able to cut our way through that flank. But our job is not done yet. We're also going to have to see if we can now use our better camo rating and pretty good gun capacity, at least at decent distances, with our high explosive anti-tank rounds, to now be able to find a little bit of a space on the dance floor and engage our opponents. So the Skoda fired twice. I can't go up in case they've got the third. I'm just going to let the Leopard prototype do their thing. Now, taking that shot means that I'm now a one-shot for all of the enemy team, including the Foch and the Stridsvagn 103B, so I'm in a very precarious scenario. Luckily for me, the Leopard prototype went round the corner, finished him off, and we can see the Foch is advancing. Now, not many tank destroyers have decent view range on the move, as they're probably not going to be taking coated optics. Most tank destroyers, if they are amplifying their view range, they're going to be using binoculars. So I'm not too worried about getting spotted right now, and I'm going to be using the ring on the minimap to be able to judge the likelihood of me being spotted. And this is where the WZ-132-1 is actually really good. It's going to have something like about 33 to, depending on how good your crew is, maybe about 36% camo rating on the move. And so that means that unlike medium tanks that are going to be pretty much below 30% unless you have an incredibly good crew, that you can make these quite cheeky plays at decent distances, where if you can try and keep your opponents at about 300 meters, then they're not going to see you like this T-30, and that will allow you to get a cheeky shot in and then hopefully be able to avoid them before they manage to figure out what you're doing. But this T-30 doesn't seem to be really thinking about what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm trying to cheap out here, really. I'm using APCR rounds, which are nice for the side of the T-30, but because I'm not loading a high explosive anti-tank round, that means that I can't follow it up with a subsequent shot to the turret of the T-30, which kind of holds me back there a little bit. But I'm hoping that this one will be able to go right into the side of the tank. Will the .42 accuracy hold me back, or will it work out? And you can see that I can't really go right through the side of the turret, at least all the time. But luckily, that shell flew true, and the penetration roll was good enough, even at a decent distance, to be able to go through the side of the fairly weakly turreted, at least sidewise, Tier 9 American tank destroyer. So this Jagdtiger, we're continuing the adventure. I want to come along with him here, and I want to see if I can be able to shut more of these tanks down. He's doing a great job. 60 TP aims at me, 60 TP aims back at the Jagdtiger. I'm going to auto-aim a cheeky shot there at the Stridsvagn 103B because I want to keep my eyes on the 60 TP and the T110E3. I asked the Jagdtiger to fall back while I'm engaging the Stridsvagn 103B, and now that he's dealt with, I can turn my attention back towards the Jagdtiger. The T110E3 turns towards me, turns towards the Jagdtiger. I'm going to come around the corner. I'm just going to track him, and that will hopefully allow the Jagdtiger on my team to be able to finish him off. Come on, buddy. I know you can do it. I know it's a dangerous American tank destroyer, but you've got this. You've got this, bud. I'm going to try and keep the T110E3 distracted. This is what your light tanks can do with their extra mobility against non-turreted tanks. And I'm going to once again track him. I mean, it looks like the T110E3 actually held his repair kit for a stressful situation. Nice try, T110E3. It didn't work out. We put the round into the back of the 60 TP, and just like that, the WZ-132-1 giving a little bit of a cheeky thank you, well, not even a cheeky thank you, a genuine thank you to the Jagdtiger at the end of the game, and we managed to get through this one. And so the WZ-132-1, it's not really a pure light tank, nor is it a medium tank. It's this kind of pseudo-hybrid. And I think, considering that the self-propelled gun nerf has affected the scouting role of a light tank so much, maybe this one's one of the better tier 10 light tanks once again. So first class medal here for our WZ-132-1 for our 1070 base experience points, and a big shout out to the Jagdtiger on my team for finishing off those kills, and also for managing to get 853 base experience points. But more importantly, a big thank you to you for the teamwork. There was no way we were going to be able to win that game unless we cut our way through that flank, and couldn't have done it without you, bud. I did spend a filthy amount of credits on ammunition this game, meaning that I lost 20,000 credits, even though I was running a premium account. But well, your tier 10 light tanks, these aren't tanks that you play to make credits. You're at a huge disadvantage with regards to your penetration, and you will have to spend to be able to deal with those heavily armored heavies, at least frontally. And with a tank like this that doesn't have the best of mobility but has that turret armor, it's one of those light tanks that will end up with those kind of trading engagements more often than other light tanks, which are kind of getting an opportunistic shot into the side or the rear of an enemy vehicle and then trying to dart away. So all in all, the WZ-132-1, now that it's top of the tree, is it worth going for this vehicle? I'd say probably not. It's not the worst light tank you'll ever play, but it is different enough to still justify it to some players out there who think that the gameplay of having a bit of turret armor against your opponents will be a little bit of fun. But for the vast majority of players out there, you're going to do better in a T100 LT. And for the very skilled players and experienced players out there, I think you're going to do better in a Manticore. And so, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that was it for today. I really hope you enjoyed this look and opinion on the WZ-132-1, considering that the self-propelled guns have been nerfed. If you did, give the video a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.